and welcome to The Banker. I'm Danielle Myles, Investment Banking and Capital Markets Editor, and I'm here today with David Clark, Chairman of the Wholesale Markets Brokers Association, which represents the world's biggest interdealer brokers. David, thank you for joining me.
It's a great pleasure.
We're here to talk about Brexit and how it could affect London as a clearing hub. And there has been much debate and speculation about this since the UK voted to leave the EU in June. And today, obviously, the city clears around 70% of euro-denominated swaps. And there are politicians and some regulators in the EU which have said that that should really be occurring on the continent. What do you make of those calls?
Well, you alluded to the political nature of this through the fact that politicians have triggered off again a debate about euro clearing, and it is a political aspiration, frankly, and it's one that's quite understandable. Ever since the creation of the eurozone, there has been a desire within that group of countries, certainly, not necessarily the rest of the 27 or 28, to keep and capture euro clearing in the eurozone. But it's never really happened because clearing has taken place in London all the way through, particularly in the swaps business. It is an established centre, and there's no actual reason why it should leave London to go elsewhere because of Brexit, and whatever that actually means, unless there is something in the negotiations that take place that we can't at this point in time foresee. But the expectation certainly is that euro clearing will stay in London. It may well be that there will be centres, clearing centres in Europe as well, and that will just increase the potential for competition. But there's no actual reason why it should leave London at all.
So as you said, we've heard from some of the politicians. What about the central banks? I mean, the ECB, I guess, is the most notable in this sense. Mm-hmm. They've been a little quieter about the issue. How much of a say do you think they would have in any decision?
Well, it isn't their decision, but they will certainly be very interested in the decision. Their principal objective here is to maintain stability. Clearinghouses are incredibly important, even more so now that there is a desire to get more products into clearing if possible. But clearinghouses themselves are not immune to risk, and therefore the risk management and regulation of clearinghouses is absolutely critical, all the way through from agreeing swap lines between central banks through to how they're regulated by the local regulators, how resolution and recovery are organised, and how the customers actually perceive the risks of clearing in a clearinghouse. So the central banks have a natural interest in stability, in security, and what the regulators are doing. And behind the scenes, I'm sure they'll have some influence.
Okay. Obviously, much talk has focused on London, obviously, in this issue because it's about Brexit. But presumably, if there was a situation where the EU did restrict where euro clearing took place, that could influence other clearing centres as well, couldn't it? The US, for instance.
Well, it could do if it happens, but it's very difficult to see how a decision could be decreed within any region to prevent other regions from actually clearing the products. What counts in clearing is the stability and the risk management of the clearinghouse, how stable that is, the perception that the clients have of how their money is being handled. And it is absolutely fundamental to that business that globally people respect the value of clearing and how things are cleared and the mechanisms of doing that. And it is very hard to see how anybody could, by fiat almost, change that particular approach.
Taking that possibility of a mandated move out of the equation then, do you think we might see some natural momentum with banks and brokers moving more euro clearing to Frankfurt or Paris or somewhere else on the continent?
There will be a natural instinct after Brexit and with the unknown quantities that we have in terms of negotiations for people to look at clearing in Europe and all types of business in Europe and say, well, maybe we should be doing a little bit more there. It's partly because of hedging. There'll be clients in third countries from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Asia, who will want to do a little bit more in Europe than they have done to ensure that they've got a foothold. And this is all part of the uncertainty that we're probably going to live with maybe for several years now. So at the margins, people will be looking at Europe and saying, well, can I clear in Europe? Where can I clear in Europe? And they'll probably wish to move some of their business there. But that incremental movement will take place along with the movement of other products from London, purely from the cautious point of view of the unknown quantity of what Brexit really will deliver.
We've spoken about clearing, but there's also been some speculation about FX and London's dominance in that area. Would Brexit threaten that in any way?
Probably not. That's quite a bold statement, but it's highly unlikely that the position of London as a foreign exchange centre will be in any way threatened by Brexit. There's several reasons for that. First of all, foreign exchange is the most global of all global businesses. And the amount of business that's done globally is concentrated around London, New York, Hong Kong, Singapore and Tokyo. It is not a mainland European speciality, if one wants to put it in that context. So there's a natural centre of global gravity, which is around London in the foreign exchange market. The other reason, of course, is that with the Market in Financial Instruments Directive, MiFID II, foreign exchange is not pulled into that. Now, some foreign exchange products, options, non-deliverable forwards, and some of the more off-the-run derivative products, people are trying to get them into clearing. It's quite difficult and it's quite expensive. So at the margin, again, there will be some tendency for business to leak out of London into Europe or possibly even elsewhere. But in terms of London's position as a foreign exchange centre, it is highly, highly unlikely that it will be challenged. In September, we have the publication of the triennial Bank for International Settlements survey on foreign exchange. And that will once again, I'm sure, show that London is in pole position. It won't be done for another 3 years, but every 6 months, the central banks track foreign exchange turnover. So it'll be quite easy to see how London fares as we go through the negotiations.
Well, some good news for London, and it sounds like, compared to what we were hearing, some of the things we were hearing about
I think so, yes.
6 weeks ago. David, thank you very much for your time.
Great pleasure.